What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. We're looking at Philadelphia versus Tampa Bay for Monday Night Football, and this is a wild card round game, and it is a game with significant injuries that we're dealing with on both sides, and I'll dig into it after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. Today's episode, I'm going to be looking at the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're playing in Tampa Bay, 43.5 point total, with Philly as 3-point road favorites in this one. So this is a game, where we might like to build for a underdog scenario in addition to the favorites. So we'll take a look at both of those types of builds. But first, before I get into that, make sure to hit like on the video. I'm looking for about 15 likes so I can put out a shorter video later on. Make sure to hit subscribe on the YouTube page because I'm looking for about 400 subscribers on my YouTube page. I'm looking for 500 subscribers. I'm up to about 409 right now. So I definitely appreciate all the help with getting that number up. And as we head into these playoffs, deeper into these playoffs, I'm going to be putting up these game scripts for every playoff game pretty much. And you can get the alerts. You can sign up for the alerts when you subscribe to the YouTube page and get alerts when these shows get put up. I put up a show already for the Buffalo-Pittsburgh game. In that game, I was pretty high on Leonard Fournette, but I am just seeing now that he didn't get called up. So I don't think he's going to play today. So if you watch that show, make sure not to play Leonard Fournette unless we get some sort of an indication that he's going to be playing tonight and that he's going to be, taking that backup role, because it looks like they did not call him up. So, kind of up in the air what's going on with Leonard Fournette, but I'm not as high on him now than I would have been this morning when I recorded the show. So let's get into this Tampa Bay game. Call this up real quick. This is going to be interesting game. We're dealing with injuries on both sides. A.J. Brown is out for the Eagles, and we got Baker Mayfield. He is going to be playing, but he's banged up. He's got some bad ribs. I'll take a look at him real quick. He is ankle and ribs injuries, what he's dealing with. He's been struggling his last few weeks. Versus Carolina, he only put up 6 DraftKings points. Carolina is a tough defense, though, for the passing game, so that doesn't really bother me. In the wake of limping around the Buccaneers' Week 18 win at Carolina, Mayfield managed a pair of limited practices Friday and Saturday due to ankle and rib injuries before being listed as questionable for the team's playoff opener. So, he's going to be playing. He's going to be hurt. He's got an easy matchup against that Philly defense. Philly's defense has been horrible against passing games this year. They're allowing 23.6 DraftKings points a game to quarterbacks. They're allowing 19.9 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. They're allowing 26.4 DraftKings points a game to the slot position. They're allowing 12.4 DraftKings points a game to tight ends. On top of that, they've been weaker against the run recently, although throughout most of the season, they were pretty good, allowing only 20.9 DraftKings points a game to running backs. So, passing game for Tampa is in full play for this slate, even with that injury to Baker Mayfield. Jalen Hurts also injured. He's got a damaged ring finger. He has that injury, as Spread pointed out the other day on our playoff best ball show. He's got that same injury that Russell Wilson had a couple years back, where he just could not throw the ball after that. Their finger just literally 90-degree angle. So Jalen Hurts is going to be a concern for his throwing. Obviously, he has the rushing upside still, but Jalen Hurts is a concern for this slate, and he might not be the lock that he normally is. That could end up different very easily. But Jalen Hurts, for right now, that injury is a concern. Mike Evans, he hasn't been playing as well these last few weeks, but I think that's been a shift towards Godwin. Like, Godwin's been getting more work, and that has affected Evans' numbers. You can see in about week 14 against Atlanta, he only got 1.8 DraftKings points in that one. He had a couple big games in between there, that 27-point game against Jacksonville and the 15.7 point game against Green Bay. But for the most part, he has been a little bit sluggish, and I think that has to do with effort to get Godwin more involved. You can see with Godwin, Godwin's numbers have kind of the opposite type of effect. 28 DraftKings points against Green Bay, 17 against New Orleans. He was a little slow last week, but that's Baker's injury. He had 11.5 DraftKings points there and 13.9 against Jacksonville. So him and Evans have not really hit on the same slate yet. Let's check out what they did against New Orleans. What did Evans do against New Orleans in that first matchup? In that first matchup, Evans only had 7 points, and Godwin had like 23. So so they haven't really hit on the same matchup yet. But anything can happen with these guys. I like either or Mike Evans or Chris Godwin on the slate, given the matchup. My favorite captain on the slate is going to be Dallas Goedert, and that is because Tampa Bay is really weak against the tight end position. Earlier in the season, when they played each other, he had 9 DraftKings points off of 7 targets, but with no A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith is banged up. I really like Dallas Goedert in this matchup, and I'm just going to go ahead and plug him in our captain spot now. This has Dallas Goedert written all over it. I mentioned it on my 2-game slate, but Rich Rebar wrote an article for Sharp Football Analysis. It's free this week. I recommend you check it out. He mentioned that Dallas Goedert, first of all, Dallas Goedert is second on the team in targets when Hurts has been blitzed, and the Bucs blitz a lot. On top of that, Tampa Bay has allowed a 20.6% of their touchdown catches to go to tight end position. So, that's setting up Goedert to have a really good game against Tampa Bay. So I like him as a captain option, especially given the limitations of Devonta Smith with his ankle and A.J. Brown being out. But I do like Devonta Smith still. I just like Dallas Goedert as a cheap captain option for us this week and in a good matchup. And he's been leaned on in the past from Jalen Hurts. As you can see, he had a 28.7 DraftKings point game against the Rams, 18.7 against Miami. Hurts is not shy when it comes to throwing to Dallas Goedert. I think as far as receivers that I also like in this game, I think we get Hurts in there for his raw point upside. I think we get Evans in there for now. Evans has that good matchup against that Philly secondary. I think we can also get in. I think we might see a kicker do well in this game. This game has a pretty low total. As I mentioned, the total is 43.5 points. I think with the injuries and everything going on in this game, I think we see a kicker come into play, and that might be Jake Elliott. If you like the Eagles to win, Jake Elliott, look at that stretch of games he had early in the season before they hit their skid. 18, 12, 11, 18, 11. They're not shy of using Jake Elliott when they need him. The last 5 games is the ones that they've lost. They started off the skid with San Francisco, losing 42-19. They lost 33-13 to Dallas. They lost 20-17 to Seattle. They actually beat the Giants 33-25. They lost to Arizona 35-31. They lost to the Giants 27-10. So they've lost to some pretty bad teams, and it's taken a like Baker Mayfield injury maybe to help them win their first playoff game in the wild card round here. So I'm going to go with Jake Elliott. And let's take a look at where that leaves us. That's 6,600 per remaining guy. If we're looking at this remaining guys that we have left, you could get in Godwin and have 5,400 left still. If you think that Baker Mayfield can overcome his injury, in that situation, you're left with Otten as an option. You're left with the other kicker as an option. You're left with guys like the Bucs D, Eagles D, Quez Watkins, guys like that. I think with A.J. Brown being out, Quez Watkins probably benefits the most as far as the third option in the passing game. Last week, Watkins had 11 targets for 23 yards. That was with I don't think Hurts played much of last week's game. Let's check out what Hurts did last week. How many? He only had 16 attempts last week, so he played about half the game. But Quez Watkins would be in play. The only thing is like he's more of a deep ball pass catcher, and if Jalen Hurts' finger is banged up, then that's going to be a threat to what he can accomplish. If you wanted to go a different direction than Godwin too, you can swap him out with Swift if you like Swift better. You got other options there. If you believe that Hurts might be limited, maybe we take him out and we put in Baker Mayfield instead. Maybe we take out let's take out Elliott for now. Let's put in Swift. That's going to leave us with 5K. Yeah, so we can get Elliott in that build too. So that way we'd have Elliott, we'd have Swift, and we have Goedert. Like this is a game plan, kind of assuming that Hurts is banged up and Smith is still banged up. That would give us Mayfield to Evans and Godwin. So we'd be able to get in a lot of studs. I do like this build. It's a 3-3 build if we do that. But it makes a lot of sense from a Gamescript perspective because Mayfield is having, he's banged up, but he's having success throwing to Evans and Godwin. Maybe PPR points being racked up there. Hurts is leaning on Goedert, and they're having success moving the ball. Goedert scores maybe a touchdown or two. DeAndre Swift, they're relying more heavily on him because Hurts is banged up and they have no A.J. Brown. And then when they get into scoring position, it's Goedert and it is the kicker. You could also put Philly's D in this build because, maybe Philly's D is coming through and setting them up in scoring position with DeAndre Swift. He's kind of capitalizing on that, as well as Dallas Goedert with maybe a couple, short touchdowns or something like that. So this is a good direction that we can go. I like Otten versus this Philly defense. I think he's got a decent matchup. And the middle of the field is where Philly has traditionally been weak. They're missing their key middle of the field corner. I can't remember his name right now. Other than that, as far as cheap guys, I like Kenny Gainwell. I think he will be a decent play. He's at 4K though, 4,200. As far as cheap guys, Zacchaeus might be interesting. Trey Palmer is very interesting because the Eagles are giving up so many points to the slot, and he's their slot receiver. Godwin, though, with the work that he's getting, he's running 37% of his routes from the slot versus Trey Palmer is running 50% of his routes from the slot. So Godwin might be the guy to benefit from that slot weakness. So let's clear that out. Let's try a different build. Let's try Godwin, taking advantage of that slot. Let's get Mayfield in there with him. Let's go with Goedert. I like Goedert a lot this week. Let's try Hurts in there. 5,200 per guy. We got Hurts to Godwin, or Hurts to Goedert. We got Mayfield to Godwin. Let's get Let's get McLaughlin in there. Let's say that Tampa Bay wins this game. That leaves us with 5,700. We could get Otton in there. So that way we're taking advantage of that middle of the field. Mayfield to Godwin and Otton. McLaughlin is chipping in, and Hurts is only finding success with Goedert, but Hurts still has his upside. But he's injured, so he's being kept at bay from the captain position. I think that makes a lot of sense with a Godwin type of build where you're fading Evans and going the Godwin direction instead. All sorts of ways you can get different on this build. I think this is a kind of a toss-up because you got Tampa Bay as home dogs. You got Philly, who has been on a skid, but they could find their way at any time. I think it's a 50-50 on who wins this game, but I do think that you can build lineups in the Tampa Bay direction. I think those will be less popular probably, which will make them good builds, because in a toss-up game like this, where people lean on one side more heavily than the other, that is going to put us in situation to go the opposite direction and have pretty much the same odds of success, basically. Don't see any ownership projections yet for which builds will be most popular. Let me go and try to run it through an optimizer real quick. We'll see which way the optimizer leans on at least the ownership for this build. Let's see, looking at Tampa Bay versus Philly for Showdown. All right, so let me build this real quick, and we'll see which way the optimizer puts the favorites in this one. All right, running it. Going to run 150 lineups, and while I'm doing that, hit like on the video. Looking for 15 likes to put out a shorter video a little bit later on with my favorite plays. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Looking for 500 subscribers by season, up to 409, maybe a little bit more by the time I look at it next. So only need about 90 more subscribers to hit that, and been doing really well. Been on a really good pace recently with getting those subscribers, so definitely appreciate that. As far as the team stacks that I see when I run that 150 lineups, 4-2 builds, 32% in Philly's favor versus 6% in Tampa's favor. So that gives us an edge right there if that ends up holding, with going 4-2 on the Tampa side. 3-3 builds, looking at about 44% are going to be 3-3 builds, and then 4-2 builds on Tampa's side should be probably around like 10%, if this is accurate. Like, this isn't necessarily the most accurate way to project that stuff by running 150 lineups on a optimizer. I would guess they're going to be probably more evenly dispersed, but I would guess 4-2 Tampa might be around like 15 to 20%. If you can get 15 to 20% on 4-2 Tampa, I would probably go pretty heavy on that, considering they're road dogs and they're only 3-point dogs in this one. So Tampa will be very interesting at 4-2 if we can get that ownership discount. Just keep an eye on your favorite ownership projection spots to find out where we can get advantage. But this is a game that should be pretty close given the injuries and stuff. So if we see a massive edge in ownership one way or the other, that's the direction that we want to go. And I've shown you guys a couple lineup directions that we can go for those scenarios. So just like lean more heavily on the one that works and gives us the edge as far as against the field. So that's it for this show, guys. Make sure to hit that like button, like I said. Subscribe to the YouTube page and sign up for Underdog using the promo code SEEK, SEEK. That's going to get you up to a $100 match on your first deposit. On top of that, hit me up on Twitter at Pumacom, and I will send you my rankings for playoff best ball. So good luck, guys, and I will see you later on.